Hi, my name's Gopal. I apologize to people who have to listen to me talk more than is reasonable, Hillary being one of them, unfortunately, because we work together. Let's see, I'm a parent. I have two kids. My daughter, Ila Sophia, is 6.5, and my son, Cubby, is 4, and I live in Oakland, and I live with 9 adults and 8 kids. This is just a little bit about my world. I'm going to talk a little bit about sort of the arc of the global justice movement over the last couple of decades. I'm going to start with some really kind of a big picture thing. I'm going to talk about the relationship between economy, ecology, and empire, just to start. We'll try and do it in a minute. Eco means home, right? So economy is the management of home. And an ecosystem is all of the relationships in your home. And ecology is the knowledge of your home. Right? And an ecosystem can be as small as a ripple in a pond, or it can be as big as the planet. Right? When you globalize the economy, you globalize the ecosystem. So humans have done things like gone to war with each other in their homes for time immemorial. And human communities have chopped down trees for time immemorial. Right? When you globalize, because chop down trees, like when your economy is small, right? You can mismanage your home, and there will be consequences that you experience, and you will change the way you think about how to live in a place, and you'll do something different. When you globalize the economy, the consequences of your mismanagement of home are systemic. You cannot excise along the planet by carving up the Amazon rainforest or the boreal forests, right? You can't kill the circulatory system of the planet by taking all of the life out of the oceans, right? That when you globalize the economy, you globalize the consequences of mismanagement of home. And in an economy, there's a whole bunch of different elements, and one of them, a key one of them, is governance. And one of the primary mechanisms of governance of this profoundly mismanaged ecosystem is empire, right? And I believe we are at the end of the empire. I believe we are this is the death throes of the empire. And everybody has an instinctive reaction of whistling. Good thinking. However, empires don't evaporate and leave democracy in their wake. They crumble. They crumble. And they leave feudalism in their wake. They leave totalitarianism in their wake. They leave all kinds of other really crappy things in their wake. So as we implode the empire, we also have to kind of imagine composting the system. We have to imagine taking it apart brick by brick and building something new. So that's kind of the big picture for me of where I want to start with. And then I'm going to show some pictures and talk about the global justice movement. The anti-globalization movement started in Seattle. Wrong. Wrong. Raise your hand if you were there. And really powerful moment for us as a movement. But of course, it was not the beginning of the movement. It was an important opportunity in the United States to begin that process of imploding the empire. Next. Actually, as many people know, there are no starts of anything, right? It's a big, long process. But we can think of the Zapatista uprising at the beginning of NAFTA in 2004 as one of the key moments that galvanized the global justice movement, the anti-globalization movement. And I want to say something really important about what the Zapatistas brought to our movement and what a new way of thinking it represented. There are some key ideas, and all of the slides I'm going to show are going to unpack some of these ideas. One is they embraced a politicization of the sacredness of place, a lesson of indigenous struggle from the beginning, that we must have a politicized relationship to place, that place must be sacred to us, and that we have to defend it. And it is about knowing where you are, where you were from. And for those of us who are dislocated by colonialism, by the psychic dislocation that makes you see a forest as a bunch of trees waiting to be cut down, as opposed to a place that you were from, that you were a part of, it is important that we begin the 1,000-year journey of sacredness of place right now. So that's one of the key things. The second key thing that came from the Zapatistas, you can keep moving on to the slides, was this idea that a world where many worlds fit. And what one of the terms that we're using to talk about this now is translocalism. The idea that we have autonomous struggle, that we have common strategies, and that we have shared frames. So we're building a movement of movements that are connected to each other, but that are all locally rooted. This is anti-globalization demonstrations in Thailand. Let's keep moving. So we started, the global justice movement started with this anti-globalization period, and then it transitioned into, I think, what we started to call the global justice period. And it took on both, for a couple of reasons. One is, it wasn't just about being antagonistic towards dominant institutions, but about building new institutions. These are just all, this is all examples coming out of People's Global Action and other forms of globalized resistance, taking on opportunities of big international moments, but really trying to push local agendas and new frames. And then, keep going. This is, of course, the last one is Yabasta. This is, you can back up for a second. Are people familiar with these images? Everybody know what that is? Okay, so these are folks. This is at the G. I'm not looking at the notes. I think this is. Do you know if this is G8 or W2? I think this is.
I don't know. Sorry.
G8, Italy. They're marching. These folks are the front line. They have tires, and they're disarming cops, and they're passing them back. They're passing batons back, and it keeps going for a whole lot of people. And what they're basically doing is creating a buffer, so that at the end of this march is families, right? This is a big demonstration of kind of direct confrontation with the state. One of the key things that came out of the global justice movement is a new orientation towards being anti-corporate, and anti-global governance, but not necessarily striving for state power. That's a really unique kind of moment that we developed into. Keep going. This is La Via Campesina in India, which is the National Alliance. It's an international alliance of small farmers and peasant movements, and they're a core part of the National Alliance of People's Movements in India, which is a super interesting formation. We don't have that in the United States. We don't have a National Alliance of People's Movements. The closest thing we have is the U.S. Social Forum, which there's some images of later. This is in the Narmada Bacho Andolan. I think there's something really important here. The Narmada Bacho Andolan is a movement of indigenous Adivasi people in India who are displaced by mega dams on the Narmada River, which is a mighty river. And one of the things that they do is they refuse to leave during the monsoons, so their homes get flooded out. And then the state comes and forces them out. And this is about actually one of the really important transitions in the global justice movement is that folks who have struggle on the ground in their communities are connecting it directly to scales of governance that are both at the country level and at the international level, and are building these movements of movements at all of these different levels. So you will find the Narmada Bacho Andolan doing direct action in their community and showing up at international arenas in the same way that you see the Korean farmers doing the same thing, right? They're engaged in their struggles on the ground, and then they come and join these broader alliances that are taking on institutions of governance at the international scale. Keep going. This is another one from India, one of my favorites. It's called weeding. It's pre-made Monsanto. These are farmers who are pulling out genetically engineered crops, and in particular cotton, and then burning them in public, basically, and saying we don't want it. So we call it weeding. These are all examples of communities around the world who are connecting their local struggle with a larger internationalist frame, and with a particular eye for self-governance. So this is in Nigeria, where folks have been fighting shell. I'm going to go fast because I'm running out of time. The water wars in Bolivia. So this is an image of the water wars in Bolivia. Huge indigenous organizing, local organizing. This was one of the really inspiring moments because they managed to kick Bechtel out of Bolivia and they have a communal water system. This is the MST. This is the Landless Peasants Movement in Brazil. They have a multi-pronged struggle. I just recently wrote a piece for Ruckus called Pick a Fight, Break the Rules, Build the New, Change the Game, and this is exactly what they do. They pick a fight. They take underutilized vacant land, right? So that they directly confront landowners. They break the rules. They just take it over. They build something new. They build new institutions, new lifeboats for their community, and by doing that, they can actually change the rules of the game. They're actually making a new set of policies. Keep going. The anti-globalization movement, I'm out of time, I'm going to go really fast. The anti-globalization movement transitioned into, I think, the anti-war movement because of 9/11 and because of the whole connection there. All of it is about looking for the systemic frame that holds it. I love this picture because this is in Pakistan, but the sign's in English. They're very clear who their audience is. Keep going fast. Okay, so now we're getting to, I'm going to just quickly talk about the climate justice movement, which is where we are right now. And the climate justice movement it's an interesting thing because climate's not an issue, right? It's the systemic consequence of screwing up your ecosystem, right? You globalize ecosystem, this is the biggest picture consequence, is that we've screwed up the relationship between the atmosphere and the oceans, right? And the climate justice movement has really taken on leadership of indigenous peoples and traditional knowledge not simply because those folks are on the front lines of the root causes, false solutions, and impacts, but because the knowledge that we need to survive is rooted in evolved knowledge of place. And this is a really central premise of the climate justice movement. Keep going, we're going to go fast. Keep going, this is all climate justice up there, Tamboti from Indigenous Environmental Network. This is indigenous people who were shut out of the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, who did an action. Directly connecting global poverty. The same thing that makes people poor, housing insecure, and hungry is the same thing that's screwing up the atmosphere. That's just the analysis, right? So keep going. False solutions. Okay, now we get to Cochabamba and Bolivia. I'm going to do stupid ass. There was the International Summit of People's Movements in Bolivia that actually really advanced a really important new frame, which is the rights of Mother Earth, and this idea that that there are inherent rights to nature, and that we're all a part of that. That this sort of new framing, this new sacredness of place. One of the really interesting things about the People's Summit in Bolivia is that there was 17 official organizing spaces, and there was an 18th space, an 18th table that was organized by social movements in Bolivia who had issue with the Bolivian state, which gets to a question of scales of government, which we'll talk about on another occasion. And then the U.S. Social Forum in Detroit. This is where we are actually trying to build our National Alliance of People's Movements. Fits and starts. It's very hard to build a people's movement inside the empire. But again, local actions, but connecting it to global organizing, global struggle. Keep going. And I'm not going to say anything about this because we just talked about the Mideast. But these are images from Egypt, and particularly the role of the social movements there. But the one thing I want to say is the thing that people don't talk about as nearly enough is the way in which self-organizing took root on the ground very quickly. In the moment, the laboratory of resistance, as David Solomon calls it, of like trying to build the new right in the moment. And then the last one is, it is not true that we do not have, that we are not going through an attempt to overthrow our government. We are, obviously, every day. So that's the last one.